As a philosopher, there's one thing I want to say first, which is when we talk about populism, you have to define exactly what you mean by it. For instance, there's no way we can try to find out what populism really is, because there is no such thing as what populism really is. We can try to find out what a plant looks like, because it can look at a plant, but populism is a word which has to be defined. And anyone who talks about populism without saying what he or she means by that word is, in my opinion, disqualified. So, now, there are some phenomena in history that naturally can be called populism. For instance, in all societies based on taxes, there have been people who want higher taxes, lower taxes, and better social services. But that's impossible, but nevertheless doesn't prevent people from wanting it. So in many countries, populist politicians want to spend like the left parties and tax like the right-wing parties. That is understandable, but unintelligible. There's not a form of populism that amounts to basically exploiting the future, exploiting future generations by failing to leave enough for later generations. So, for instance, it's easy for populists to think that we should fix problems by taxing the rich. And for a while that may work, but after some time that means that the rich will start working less. So effectively that form of populism amounts to killing the goose that's laying the golden eggs. Then there's a third form of populism that we could call Trumpist populism, which is based on some very complex combination of ignorance, bigotry, resentment, and fear, which we find in many other countries, not just in America. But what's unique about America is that the proportion of the electorate which is motivated by all these sentiments is so much larger than in other countries. Then there is a populism that also probably as old as the history of democracy, that is the belief in quick fixes. There's, as an American writer said, Mencken, for any complex problem, there's an answer that is simple, obvious, and wrong. So the reluctance for people who haven't made a profession of it to accept that complicated problems require complicated solutions, there's a tendency to go for the quick fix, and that can be disastrous if those policies are enacted. Well, then there are some forms of populism that really stem from real problems, but problems that are often misunderstood with respect to their causes. So globalization has generated forms of populism that are based on the real or the perceived threats of poverty, inequality, and insecurity. And one way of summarizing the problem is that the globalization process, free trade, by and large benefits every country on average, but also in each country creates winners and losers. So we can say that the main problem in much of the world today is how to compensate the losers from globalization. And there are some obvious solutions, but usually they don't work. For instance, the winners are usually not particularly willing to give up their gains to subsidize the losers. And the winners often have the political power to keep their money that they have gained.